Yeah, and I had to help out with all the chores. I did the dishes, I did the laundry. Like there was no other choice, and we would never be able to go out to play on a Friday or Saturday because those are the busiest days in the shop. So we had to work.
Your childhood's been rough.
We had to help mop the floors and taking orders and stuff. That was just how life was for us. Hey guys, Korean dumpling में आपका स्वागत है. मेरा नाम Rebecca है.
And I'm Arnav.
So today we are doing a video. I don't think it's really been requested, but we thought it'd be an interesting one to talk about, and it is about growing up in the UK versus growing up in India.
Okay.
So I have some notes on my phone. So if you see me looking at my phone, it's because I'm just trying to look back at what I wanted to talk about. Being born in general in the UK, we have a system called the NHS, which is great, which is the National Health Service, which we pay for via our taxes. So it's free, but it's...
I mean, it's not free.
So we pay for it. And Arnav, to move here, he had to pay an NHS surcharge. So technically, it is paid for. It's just that when you actually use the service, you're not going to get charged anything more. So it feels like it's free when actually you've kind of been paying for it all your life when you've been making money. Yeah. And I was born in a place called Bristol, which is like a city, quite a rough city, not the nicest place.
I'm so glad you didn't grow up there.
I lived there for maybe a couple months, and then I moved to a different city, not a city actually, a different place, which is a tiny town in Somerset.
Countryside.
Yeah, which is a countryside, and it's predominantly Caucasian, white British. There was no cost involved with having a child in the UK, at least, because everything medical wise is free. School is also free, and
so lucky, man. Just so lucky. Everything is free.
What was it like for you?
Well, I was born in... I mean, I'm from Delhi, and I grew up in Delhi, but I was not born in Delhi. I was born in a city called Cuttack. It's in the state of Orissa, because that's where my mom's from. Although my mom and dad both are Bengali, my mom grew up in Orissa. So I was born in Orissa, but I can't speak Oriya at all. We had to just you have to pay for everything. So it's not free, unless you go to the government hospitals, which generally are full of people, people who are in desperate need. So we generally go to private hospitals. Private, it might sound it's fancy, but it's not, because...
Yeah, for us, private's like, oh, that's really fancy.
No, but in India, it's like everything is privatized, and you have different tiers of hospitals and stuff. When I was born, I moved to Delhi because that's where my dad was working, and then I grew up in Delhi. I was there for 18 years, and yeah, I'm pretty much a Delhi guy, Delhi boy. In terms of, I mean, I'm an Indian, grew up in India, so I never had that kind of exposure where I'm not surrounded by my kind of people.
Yeah.
But because I'm from Bengali family, it was hard because my parents spoke in Bengali with me, and when I had to go to school, everybody speaking Hindi. Because in Delhi it's Hindi, and then and obviously the school was English medium, so I guess I had a bit of a transition period between not knowing how to speak Hindi, and I was really not good at Hindi, not confident, and then obviously Hindi is my mother tongue now, along with English and Bengali. So yeah, it's hard to say anything from that perspective. It was just normal, everything was just normal for me.
So when I was 1 or 2 years old, because my parents were very, very poor, they didn't have a lot of money, they couldn't afford childcare, because childcare is the only thing that you do have to pay for. I think here in Scotland, you can send your child to kindergarten for free once they're 3 or 4 years old.
Oh, you can?
Yeah.
Oh,
but obviously 1 to 2, and a lot of parents, especially both parents that work, you still need to find childcare when they're young. So for my parents, so they already had my older brother who's 5 years older than me, but that's still not really old enough to look after me as a baby. And then both of them, we moved to Somerset because my parents bought their own Chinese takeaway. And so both of them were working pretty much full time. They didn't have money to spend on like a childcare or someone to look after me as a newborn baby. So they usually left me alone with my brother, which is not the safest thing. But obviously there's nothing else they could do. They were poor at the time. And then the other alternative they would do is they would bring me down to the shop, because we lived above the shop, and then downstairs was like the takeaway part. Once I was in I must have been in a crib or something just at the front of the shop, so my mum could keep her eye on me. and one of the customers basically threatened to call social services if it's really horrible actually.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Because my parents didn't have any other choice.
Yeah,
and it's not like I was in danger because I was in a place where there were people.
Yeah, but in probably from a stranger's perspective, which he's not used to all that kind of stuff, maybe he was like, oh my god.
They're talking from a place of privilege, to be honest, I think. They could have offered to help or offered to do something or provide services, because my parents also, being relatively new to the UK, they didn't really know what services they could get to. Yeah. So someone basically threatened that they would call social services if they saw me in the shop again. And so my parents made the decision to move me and my brother back to Hong Kong. So I spent a couple of years in Hong Kong, and it did mean that when I came back to school in the UK, I didn't speak any English, which is weird because obviously now you'll hear my English is pretty good. But actually, when I first went to school in the UK, I could not speak a single word of English. And the school kept sending back letters to my parents saying, please can you teach her English because she does not understand what we're saying.
My god, I can't imagine you not speaking English.
Right, I know. And eventually the school appointed a English teacher for me. So every week, I think maybe a couple times a week, there would be a Chinese lady who would come into the school. She would pull me out of whatever lesson I was in, and she would actually teach me English. And then slowly, obviously when you're a child you soak everything up, slowly I knew how to speak English, and then after then obviously I just went to school as normal.
And now you look at you.
Yeah.
Speaking fluent English.
Would your school have provided you with services like that? Like I had a specific teacher to teach me English. If you had issues, would you have
not
been
really,
provided?
no. You probably can go to your teachers and stuff and ask for help, but there's not gonna be like extra services.
Right.
Because in India, I think people generally go to like tutors, like private tutors and stuff, because that's a big industry in India.
Yeah, tutoring is not a thing here. I think.
I mean, nowadays it is.
It's more, but not as much.
It's not as prevalent as in India. It's a whole industry. Like I would go to school, and I would not pay attention in classes because I knew I'm gonna go home, and I can go to my tutors and be like, yeah, I can study here. I don't have to pay attention. So there was a lot of times when I would go to school, don't give a shit about the classes, because I had this fallback option where I'm gonna go home and I will be taken care of. So, but you never had like something in school that, oh, if you are failing in something, they're gonna have some extra support. Nothing like that.
Yeah, in the UK I don't think education is valued as much by like the general population, but education is quite a big thing, and they do provide a lot of services. If you are kind of hard of learning and you find difficulties, they'll have specific special helpers.
It's very supportive.
There would be, if you're autistic, there might be a specific person who is assigned to look after that child. I think they're pretty good at dealing
it's very good. The only sad thing is that people in the UK, the general public doesn't value it as much as Asian people do.
Yeah.
Because as an Indian, as a Chinese, I think education is of prime importance. It's something your parents work hard to be able to provide you the best education. Here, I think it's be like, yeah, school's free, I don't care, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest difference between the cultures between India and UK.
Yeah. So I wanted also to talk about some of the difficulties that I had in school. Was because my parents worked in the evening, they had a takeaway, so generally they worked in the evening. And one of the things that we had to do in primary school was we had to read to our parents. Like that was part of our homework, was reading to our parents, and then our parents had to sign our diaries. Most of the time for me, my parents didn't have time to listen to me. Like I'd be trying to like read to them whilst they're like working in the shop, and they'd be like, go back upstairs and we'll speak to you later. And then obviously by the time my parents finish work, I'll be in bed already. So there were many times when I had a lunchtime detention essentially, because my parents hadn't signed my book, which I felt was really unfair, because for any kids who have parents that work, and generally it was mainly me, because most a lot of people here, like one of the parents will probably be at home with them. I was the only child where like nobody was looking after me, which is why I learned to be very self-sufficient. I learned to just do everything for myself, to be very independent, which I think is quite different for Indian kids. Like you guys still rely on your parents.
I mean, yeah, that's great that you had that kind of independence at such a young age. For me, because my mom was, she's a housewife, so my dad worked, and then mom would take care of my like homework and education and make sure I'm getting the good grades or just working with me so that I can, I mean, obviously got scolded and stuff because if I don't study hard enough and all that. But yeah, like we, as a middle class Indian family, I think we are quite dependent on our families. Like there's always somebody to take care of you. If the mother's working, then obviously we have helpers at home who cook for you or help you with the stuff. Like when I first moved to Hong Kong and I had to do my laundry, I had to do my dishes, I was like, my god, this is some like hard stuff. Like I've never done that. Like I've never had to turn on a washing machine. I've never had to do my dishes. I've never had to worry about do I have fresh clothes the next day or iron them or anything. So I've never known these things because there's always somebody to do that for you. And it's not like we are spoiled. It's just how life is.
Yeah.
Just basic life stuff I had not known until I left home at 18, which is a big difference.
Yeah, and because obviously this isn't how every kid in the UK grows up. I think it's very typical for an immigrant,
Asian family, which is kind of
like someone who owns a Chinese takeaway.
Or
a lot of people who grow up like that are the same. So I had to help my parents a lot with translation. And I'd be, like a 10-year-old kid reading some formal document and trying to translate it to my parents so that they could understand. I also basically started working in the shop from the age of like 11. So yeah, I grew up very, very quickly because I kind of had to.
Yeah. That's probably explains why you're so mature.
Yeah.
And why I am 28 now and still not mature.
Yeah.
It's probably your childhood plays a big part in that.
Yeah, and I had to help out with all the chores. I did the dishes, I did the laundry, whatever there was that needed to be done. Me and my brother helped out because my parents already had so much to do with the shop that they were maintaining that we had to help. Like there was no other choice, and we would never be able to go out to play on a Friday or Saturday because those are the busiest days in the shop. So we had to work.
Your childhood's been rough.
We had to work, we had to help mop the floors, and taking orders and stuff. That was just how life was for us.
Now look at you, you've come along there.
I mean, I don't regret my life
at
all.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's some things that you learn at such a young age by working, becoming that independent at such a young age, I think plays such an important role in how you lead your life as an adult. Because for me, obviously, it's a very recent thing. Like, it's only in the last 5-7 years that I've become independent for doing things myself and self-sustaining, but you obviously had I
realized how important money was as well at the very young age, because I saw how hard my parents worked, and even so they barely got any money. And I studied really hard as well because I knew that I didn't want to just take on the takeaway. I had to study in order to do something and be successful.
I was beat up by my parents if I was not studying hard enough. Beat up with a belt and slippers and pillows and whatnot. There had been times where I would just not study hard enough because I just don't want to, because I'm lazy, and my parents are obviously spending so much money on my education and the tutoring and stuff, and I understood that they're spending, but I was just like, but I want to have fun because I'm this lousy teenager. So yeah, it's such a big difference where you didn't have anything forcing you, but you did it all yourself. And
so my parents were very much, they really didn't want to pressure me because I was already, in the mornings I'd wake up at 6 o'clock before school. I'd do at least an hour of work or revision, and then I'd go to school, and then I'd come home and I'd do more work. And so my parents sometimes would worry actually that I was being too stressed out, and I'm still a child at this point. So sometimes my dad would come up with like a cup of tea, or he'd come up with food and he'd be like, please take a break. Whereas for you it's more like, please do what
yeah, it's like, why are you not studying? Why are you on a break all the time? And it's like, it just took a break. I was studying. She was like, my parents were like, no, you've not been studying. Why are you not studying? So it's a very big difference in how we grew up. I'm still like that. I still procrastinate. I still like to keep things for the last moment, and you don't. So
I don't. I do my homework on the first day I get it.
So I think that's just how we are as a personality, you can't really change that.
No.
Also, one thing I find very different from both of us
Yeah.
is I mean, it makes sense because you grew up in the UK
Yeah.
where everybody speaks English.
Yeah.
So your parents made an effort to speak to you only in Cantonese.
Yeah. So I would make sure that I still know Cantonese.
Yeah, and then I am a Bengali. I'm from Bengali family, and I grew up in Delhi. That means everybody around me speaks Hindi. So my mom would only speak in Bengali with me, and my dad would not speak to me unless I speak in English with him. And he forced me to read books like novels and encyclopedias and any books, for that matter. Just I have to read books, and I have to speak in English. Otherwise, he would not talk to me. That's probably why I learned a bit of English a bit earlier than a lot of people. But I still struggled with English as in school for like coursework, like for grammatical errors and literature and comprehension and stuff.
Yeah.
Because in those exams they don't cater, like they don't talk about speaking skills. It's more about the reading and writing and the comprehension.
Do you not have speaking part of the exam?
No.
Oh.
Which is very strange.
That's very strange.
Which is probably the strangest thing, because if you're not speaking it, I don't know how you're learning it. Obviously in the school we would have a chapter reading, and everybody through the roll numbers would read a paragraph.
Oh, you had to read in the class?
Yeah. I don't mind that.
I hated that.
I hated that because you obviously make a mistake and everybody's like, oh, you can't, doesn't know how to say the word. So yeah, that was the only speaking thing. So that's probably, my dad just made sure that every time he's home, I'm home, we're speaking in English, watching English movies, English TV, but yeah.
So for in England, our like exam boards, we have, for foreign languages, we have a speaking part, where it's literally like an interview.
Yeah.
And then you have a listening comprehension, and then you have a reading, and then I think you have one where you have to do like write an essay.
Yeah. It's very standard everywhere. That's how it should be. Even for my IELTS for the visa, I had to speak a few things. Very basic.
Yeah.
But yeah, which also doesn't make sense. Why do I need to do that when I can't speak so fluently? I don't know.
But they need to check that. They don't know you from Adam, so.
But then India is the biggest English-speaking nation in the world. So I don't understand why Indians are not considered.
Yeah. The next one, which we've kind of touched on, is like our education school system. So in the UK, or at least in England, so it's different here in Scotland, and I'm not really sure exactly how it works in Scotland. It's completely different. But in England, we go through nursery or kindergarten. And
at what age though?
Nursery, I think you can go at whatever age. It's just,
oh really?
Yeah. Like whenever you need to go, you go.
Oh right.
And then I think preschool is maybe 3 onwards.
Oh, it's very different in India.
And then I think from 5 you go to primary school, year 1. Then you at primary school you go from year 1 up till year 6, and at year 6 you'll be about 10, 11, I think. And then from then you then move to secondary school, and sometimes
it's a different school.
It's a different school, completely different school. You have to apply to it. You do an exam called the year 6 SATs, and that will determine not necessarily what school you'll go to, but what classes you'll go to. And I do think that some schools, maybe they will use that to see if they'll accept you or not. So then I went from my primary school to a secondary school, and then from there we do years 7 through to year 11. I think if you went to a school where they also have like the college part or a 6th form college attached, you can go through up until you go to uni. But my school was only a secondary school, and it went from year 11, so you're about 11 to 12 that's year 7 until year 11, which is when you're about 16. At 16, in year 11, you do your GCSEs, and then that will determine what A-levels you'll be able to do when you do either a 6th form college or you go to college. The difference between a 6th form college and a college is that the 6th form college is only for people that are aged 16 to 19.
Man, it's hella confusing.
Yeah. And then a regular college, anyone, like you can be any age and you can go.
Makes no sense.
So I went to a 6th form college, so again it meant I had to change schools and meet a whole different bunch of people. And even for that school I had to do an interview. They looked at all of my results from my GCSEs and like predicted results and things like that. And because I was quite a good student, I had predicted A's for everything. So, very good Asian student here.
Typical. You can't get anything less than A.
And then the school that I applied to were like, yeah, you're great. Like, we definitely want you. So I got into it, and then from there, at the age of 18 is when you go to university.
It's not as complicated.
Okay.
So when you're 3, you go to this thing called preschool.
Okay, so same as us, we have preschools. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. At 3.
Uh-huh.
Where you go to a tiny area and you learn little things. Okay.
Like, you just do colouring and stuff.
Yeah,
like nothing.
Shapes and
Yeah.
poems and like learn whatever that you can learn at that age. At the age of 4 is when your schooling starts.
Oh.
Okay. But wait a minute. And when the schooling starts, it's called the nursery.
Oh, I think nursery is first for us.
So you go to nursery when you're 4.
Okay.
And then after nursery, you go to KG, which is kindergarten. KG.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So nursery and KG are 4 and 5. And then after that, when you're 6, you go to the standard 1.
Okay.
1 standard. And from 1 standard to 2nd, then 3rd, and 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th standard.
And 12th is when you're what age?
You finish 12th standard when you're 18.
So just before uni?
Yes. So in India, college and uni are interchangeable. It's the same thing. I'm going to college means you're going to university.
Right, so that's different for us.
Yes.
College means you're just before the university stage.
Yeah. So our high school is typically between standard 9 to 12th. So 9, 10th, 11th, 12th. And then middle school is 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. And anything before that is primary school. But, at least for me, I was in the same school for the entire 14 years of education.
And are you in the same classes, or does it depend on how good you are?
From nursery to 5th standard, I was in the same class. So that's how, I know my friends Nikita and Arjun and Diksha and people. And then in 5th standard, you get to choose a language. Either German or French or...
What age are you at 5th standard again?
So we are about like 10, 11.
Okay.
10 or 11, yeah. And then obviously because you're in a certain section, right?
Yeah.
And then they get shuffled between some people take German, some take Sanskrit, some take French, and then the sections get formed.
Okay.
Right? And that's when Satya came into my section, and that's how I've known him since. And then you go 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th standard until 8th standard you are in the same section and stuff. Again, at 9th you get to choose. Do you want to continue? Sorry, no. 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. Yes, until 10th. Until 10th standard, when you're like 15, 16, you study your German or you study whatever and stuff. And then when you move to the last 2 years of your school, that is 11th and 12th, the most crucial. I mean, 10th and 12th are considered the most crucial. Basically, 10th is O-levels, 12th is A-levels.
Yeah,
if you want to compare.
Yeah.
In the final years of your school, you choose a few different streams. So there's a medical stream if you want to become a doctor.
Yeah.
If you want to become an engineer, or if you want to become anything tech or computer science or whatever, you take this path: physics, chemistry, math. You don't have biology, but you have physics, chemistry, math, and English, and something else. Yeah. If you want to go to a business side of things, like what Nikita did, you go to this commerce stream where you take business studies, accountancy, economics, English, and another kind of some businessy stuff. So these different streams take. You cannot be like, I'm going to take accountancy and I'm going to take physics, chemistry, and English. You can't do that. It's very like either this, or this.
So we have complete choice. So
exactly.
We get our first choice at year 9, which is when we're 13, 14, I think. And that is the first time we get a choice to choose what topics we do. So science, maths, and English are compulsory. You have to take them no matter what you do. And then what else is compulsory? Citizenship.
What the hell?
Yeah, so we have to learn about like how to vote and other things like that. Got an A star in that. And we also have to take religious education. Where we just learn about religions, and I think it's about trying to be open-minded.
Right. I think we do study all this.
I got an A in that. Well, no, I definitely did get an A in that because I got an A in everything. But I've done a PhD in chemistry, right? But in science, I got moved down a set because I got the lowest grade in the class. And I was really sad about it, so I worked my ass off. Like, I really worked hard to become top of the second class, which is set 1, and I then got my place back in Express set.
Nice. Kudos to you. Congratulate her for that. Great.
I worked very hard in school, and I was very determined to do as well as possible. The other thing I wanted to ask for you, so in our exams, they have like A to C exams and then C onwards exams. So basically in my exams, I can't get anything lower than well, I think I can get lower than a C, but it'd probably just be a fail. And then there are other classes, particularly the classes who don't do as well, their exams would be a lot easier, but they can only get a maximum of a C. Do you have anything like that?
No. I mean, we get shuffled into different sections depending on how good or bad the sections are, but not as significant. And no, we don't use grades. We use numbers, like out of 100, 50, 60. Okay. That's how the CBSE works, which is where I'm from. I think things are changing now. A lot has changed since I got done with school. I'm just saying, we get like percentages, but now I think it's a bit. They do like something called CGPA.
Like a GPA.
Yeah. So they do like, I'm a 9 CGPA, 9, I'm a 10, or I'm an 8 or whatever.
Because I always thought it was weird how we had different exams. Like,
no, it's standard for us. Everybody gets the same exam paper and everybody gets the opportunity to get the highest score. But obviously people who study hard and work hard will get the best score.
Well, the thing is, I think for us, it's about, they don't want to let the people who aren't, so the people who are definitely not going to get an A, they don't want to make them do an exam that is going to be so hard that they're going to lose faith in themselves. So I think they give them an easier exam, but obviously it's not fair to give them an A when I've done a much harder exam to get my A.
Right. So I mean, it sounds fair, but in India it's just like, you either are a good student or you're shit. Simple.
I think though that if you're like borderline, like if you've taken the C plus exam and you got a C, they might ask you to take the A to C to see if maybe you could have gotten better, but I'm not sure.
Right, no.
Because I've never been in that situation, but...
Nothing like that in India, at least as far as I know. I've never seen anything like that.
I think here in the UK there are a lot more like, I don't know if considerate's the right word, but they're a lot more careful about trying not to make you feel like you're a bad student.
Right.
When you maybe just can't do as well as someone who's an A student. So they make you feel like you are an A student, but actually the stuff you do is not that hard.
In India, the teacher's just in your face. Oh, you are shit. You are stupid.
Do you get hit in India?
Of course, yeah. I got slapped once.
Corporal punishment is illegal in the UK, and you can actually get jail time for it.
Man, the number of times I've got slapped from my parents, teachers, friends, I don't even have to count anymore.
Yeah.
Slapping is just very chill in India.
It's not allowed here, and you can call the police on someone if you see them. So obviously you wouldn't have had any racism because.
But man, I was bullied. I was bullied left, right, and center. I was a tiny little dude. I was all the time.
You're still tiny.
I'm still tiny.
Yeah.
And a lot of bad kids used to bully me and used to steal my food. You know who you are. You stole my food, my sandwiches and my paranthas and whatever my mom made. You stole my food. They would say, I'm gonna tear your bag open if you don't give me your lunchbox. If I put a lock on them. And they would like, you can put a lock, but we'll tear it apart, or you can take the lock out.
Were they older kids or just the same age?
No, my same age, man. Just like rough people. They never hit me. They never put me down and beat me up, or it didn't affect me.
Why didn't they have lunch?
Oh, they had. They just didn't have my mom's cooking.
Well, then they should tell their moms to cook better.
Well, yeah. I mean, it didn't affect my life or childhood. It was not like, I was not in like this dark space where
I was.
I would just go home. I would be like, mom, if didn't eat anything, my friends stole my food.
They're not your friends.
Well, classmates. So yeah, it was, I would get bullied and I would get like ganged up on, but I would never get like, oh my god, beaten up that I need to go to the hospital or anything. It was never like that. Right. So it was very casual, but it was still bullying, if you think about it.
I didn't get bullied by anyone in school as such. I had a few racist, like people would call me racist things, but they'd never like go so far as like punching me or anything. I think it helps that I'm a girl.
Yeah.
And also because my brother is 5 years older than me, he'd already been at the school, and my brother was quite popular. He was sporty. He was also relatively like intelligent and stuff, and he was friends with all the rugby guys, the football guys. So
that helps.
Yeah, that helps a bit. So kids in school were never that mean to me, and a lot of times people would be like, "Oh, you're Raymond's sister," and I'm like, "Yeah." But there were people in the town that I lived in who were just not very nice people, and they were racist, and every time they saw me in the street they would like throw rubbish at me, and they would call me names. They'd tell me to go back to your country. And one particular incident, a guy pushed me out into the road when there was a car coming. Thankfully, obviously, I got out of the road before the car hit me. But then I went home and I cried, and my parents didn't really know what to do because it's not like it happened in school. And that particular kid did a lot of things to me, and he wasn't at school. He was an older child.
Oh, wow.
So the school couldn't do anything because they were like, it's not within school. Like, even sometimes it would happen right outside school. Just as I'm leaving school, he would be there.
Oh.
Yeah.
What a piece of shit.
Because I think some of his friends still went to school. I don't think he was allowed to come to school.
Right.
But some of his friends still. And obviously, as someone who has nothing to do and no job because he's probably on drugs or whatever, he just wait outside school, and then I'd come out and I'd like, there'd be nothing I can do about it, and there's nothing the school could do about it. And obviously my parents worked, they couldn't like be my bodyguards, which I totally understand. Which was why I ended up doing judo, because my parents like, you need to learn some kind of self-defense and also gain confidence, because by this point I think I'd lost a lot of confidence, and I was
but that's
like,
good though. You learn
becoming
something out of it.
more like getting more anxious about stuff and scared. And so I did judo, and that really helped with my confidence and just realizing that I actually had the strength to beat people up, which
Even
was
guys?
cool. Yeah, even guys.
So.
Well, and I remember like when I'd go to judo practice, I'd walk in my judo outfit, even though there was changing rooms at the gym, so I could change that. I'd be like, no, I'm gonna go there in my judo. I'm gonna have my belt on. I'm gonna have my medals around my neck. I think as I got older, and I think also because when I got older, I went to university in Cardiff, and then I moved generally to cities rather than living in a tiny town where everyone is white. It got better because everyone was used to seeing people of colour, whereas because I grew up in that place where everyone is white, yeah, people just kind of look down. Sometimes we would get horrible letters come through the door, and because and because obviously I speak English and my parents didn't, I would have to read. Oh, just horrible stuff, like go back to your country and stuff.
Really?
Yeah. And so, because I also, my parents didn't wake up with me to go to school. I would wake up by myself, I'd make myself breakfast, or I'd not have breakfast. Most of the time I don't have breakfast.
Yeah.
And then I'd go to school by myself. So I would see the letter, I'd open the letter to read it, and then, you know, it's always me. And I'm always worried that like my parents will get upset, so I don't usually tell them when we receive those kinds of letters.
You're as a kid, you're supposed to be protected from these things.
Yeah. And then there was one time we had a letter from like some mentally ill patient who basically, he basically told us that if we don't stop selling Chinese food or something like that, he was gonna attack us. And that time I actually ended up telling the police because it was a very threatening letter, and it was a hand-delivered letter, handwritten to our door, and obviously I think I was probably about 15 at the time. You know, I go to school every day, we live there.
Yeah.
So obviously I was a bit frightened, and I think I just like emailed the police. I don't even know how I managed to find their email. But I remember once a policeman came to our shop, and my mum shouted, "Rebecca, what did you do?" Because he asked for me. And then obviously
Then you show up?
Yeah, I showed up, and I had the letter, and I told him, and I spoke to him, and he was very nice. He took the letter, and then he told us that they tracked who it was. It was a guy who lived in a mental institute, and he was like, they've basically warned him not to do this, and he actually sent this letter to various other Chinese takeaways.
What a piece of shit.
So he was like, he shouldn't, he won't do anything more, so don't worry about it. And then we've also had people throw like rubbish outside our door. I mean, in general, life was okay. But yeah, we definitely had some racism. I think this is going to be a really long video.
It's going to be very long. Yeah,
bit,
it's probably like an hour long. But
let us know though if you have any further questions.
Yeah.
About living in the UK or living in India.
Growing up in India, growing up in the UK.
And yeah, if you have any other topics that you want us to cover as well, let us know.
And if you like the video, press the like button, share with your friends, and if you're not subscribed, what are you waiting for? 10k guys, we need to reach 10k. So please subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so that every time we post a video, you guys can see the video at that very minute. And until then, enjoy the weekend or whatever day you're watching this video on. We'll see you in the next video.
Bye.